Captain Riley Martinez sat in the back row of the Galactic Defense Council chamber, doing her absolute best to look like she belonged there, which, considering she was surrounded by beings with tentacles, extra eyes, and what appeared to be a sentient cloud of gas, wearing a military uniform, was no small feat. The massive holographic display at the front of the room showed combat statistics that would make a lesser species weep, or whatever the equivalent was for creatures that communicated through bioluminescent skin patterns. As you can see, General Vextar was saying, his forearms gesturing dramatically at the data, the Zentorian Empire continues to dominate all combat simulations. Their warriors are simply superior in every measurable way. Riley suppressed a snort. Vextar was a walking cliché of alien superiority complex, complete with ridiculous shoulder spikes and a voice that sounded like he gargled gravel for fun. The kind of guy who probably practiced his dramatic pauses in the mirror. However, Vextar continued, his multifaceted eyes scanning the room with obvious disdain, we must discuss the recent addition of human forces to our coalition. Oh, here we go, Riley thought, straightening slightly in her chair. Now, I understand that humans show a certain enthusiasm for combat, Vextar said, the way someone might describe a particularly energetic toddler, but let us be realistic about their capabilities. Commander Brooks, Riley's direct superior, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Poor guy looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. Their technology is primitive, Vextar went on, clearly warming to his subject. Their tactics are questionable at best, and their naming conventions. He paused, consulting his datapad with theatrical precision. Well, they speak for themselves. Riley felt a familiar tingle of annoyance. She knew exactly where this was headed. Take, for example, their so-called elite pilot, Captain Riley Martinez. Vextar's voice dripped with condescension. Her call sign is, and I quote, pancake. A ripple of what Riley assumed was alien laughter echoed through the chamber. Several delegates made sounds that probably translated to snickering in their respective languages. Pancake, Vextar repeated, savoring the word like it was personally offensive to him. How utterly adorable. How typically human to name their warriors after breakfast foods. Riley stood up slowly, every eye, optical sensor, and photoreceptive organ in the room turning toward her. The silence was thick enough to cut with a plasma sword. General Vextar, she said, her voice carrying that particular brand of calm that usually preceded someone having a very bad day. I appreciate your colorful commentary on human naming conventions. Oh, by all means, Captain Pancake, Vextar said, his mandibles clicking in what she was pretty sure was amusement. Please, enlighten us about the deep tactical significance of your breakfast-themed moniker. Riley smiled. It wasn't a particularly nice smile. Well, General, I'd be happy to show you exactly why they call me Pancake. She paused, letting the moment hang. Right after I break that 20-year-old combat record your golden boy Crixval set. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates chittered, buzzed, and made various otherworldly sounds of disbelief. Vextar's forearms spread wide in what was definitely the alien equivalent of, oh, you've got to be kidding me. The Gauntlet of Gexmore? He sputtered. Captain, that simulation has broken the will of our finest warriors for 2 decades. Riley shrugged. Yeah, well, I haven't had breakfast yet, so I'm feeling pretty motivated. And with that, she sat back down, leaving the entire Galactic Defense Council to wonder what exactly they'd just witnessed. The only sound was the gentle hum of the life support systems and the distant rumble of Vextar's dignity dying a slow, painful death. 3 hours later, Riley found herself standing in front of the most intimidating piece of military hardware she'd ever seen, and she'd once had to explain to a court-martial why she'd used a Star Destroyer's main cannon to make toast. The Gauntlet of G. Gexmore simulation chamber looked like someone had crossed a medieval torture device with a supercomputer and then given it anger management issues. Cables snaked everywhere, holographic displays flickered ominously, and the whole thing hummed with the kind of energy that suggested it could probably power a small planet. Riley, Commander Brooks said, his voice heavy with the weight of impending doom, I need you to understand what you're walking into here. A really expensive video game, Riley suggested helpfully. Brooks pinched the bridge of his nose. The Gauntlet isn't just any simulation. It's a perfect recreation of the most brutal combat scenarios in recorded galactic history. The psychological stress alone has hospitalized seasoned warriors. Sounds fun. Brixol's record stands at 17 levels completed before the simulation declared him mentally unfit to continue. 17, Riley, out of 25 total levels. Riley whistled appreciatively. So what you're telling me is that the bar is set at almost made it to the end but had a nervous breakdown instead. But nervous breakdown earned him a Medal of Honor and a retirement package that includes his own moon. Well, when you put it that way. A cheerful electronic chime interrupted them, and a holographic interface materialized beside Riley's head. The AI's avatar looked like a floating blue orb with what could generously be called a face. "Hello, Captain Martinez," the AI said in a voice that managed to sound both helpful and deeply sarcastic. "I'm Janet, your designated neural enhancement tool for today's exercise in spectacular failure." Janet? Just another neural enhancement tool. The technicians who named me apparently had the same creative flair as whoever decided to call you Pancake. Riley grinned. "I think we're going to get along just fine." "Oh, wonderful. Another optimist. Do you know what the survival rate is for this simulation?" "I'm guessing it's not great." 200%, actually. Survival rate is perfect. It's the maintaining your sanity and dignity afterward rate that's more problematic. Commander Brooks cleared his throat. "The stakes here are significant, Riley. If you fail spectacularly, it gives the Council ammunition to reduce humanity's role in the Defense Coalition. We could lose the contract for the Outer Rim patrol assignments. And if I succeed, then you'll have accomplished something that the greatest warriors in the galaxy have been attempting for 2 decades. No pressure, then." Janet's holographic form bobbed in what might have been a nod. "Oh, there's plenty of pressure. The simulation monitors your biometrics, psychological state, and tactical decision-making in real time. One moment of weakness, one tactical error, one unfortunate emotional breakdown, and you're out." Riley stepped toward the chamber's entrance, a circular portal that looked like it was trying to decide between being a door and being a mouth. "Janek, what's the weirdest thing about this simulation?" "Well, it adapts to your species' psychology. For Centaurians, it exploits their honor-based culture. For crystalline entities, it attacks their hive mind dependencies. For humans," Janet paused dramatically, "nobody knows. You're the first human to attempt it." "Fantastic. So I'm not just trying to break a record, I'm also a test subject." "Precisely. Isn't science wonderful?" Commander Brooks placed a hand on Riley's shoulder. "You don't have to do this, you know. Vextar was just being his usual pompous self." Riley looked at the simulation chamber, then at the viewing gallery, where she could see General Vextar and half the Galactic Defense Council settling in to watch her inevitable failure. "Brooks, you know what I hate more than anything in the universe? Beings who think they're better than humans? Beings who think they're better than humans and are smug about it." Riley cracked her knuckles and stepped toward the chamber. "Janet, fire this thing up. Time to show these aliens what happens when you mock someone's call sign. Of GGEX more in 3, 2, 1, and may, whatever deities you believe in, have mercy on your soul." The chamber door sealed with a hiss that sounded suspiciously like the universe chuckling. Riley found herself standing on what appeared to be a plane of crystallized lightning. The ground beneath her feet crackled with energy, and the sky above looked like someone had taken a perfectly normal sunset and fed it through a blender with a bag of angry rainbows. "Welcome to the Razor Plains," Janet announced helpfully. "This is where most participants experience their first existential crisis." "It's pretty," Riley said, looking around at the jagged crystal formations that jutted from the ground like frozen screams. "In a this is definitely going to kill me sort of way. The objective is simple: cross the plains while avoiding the energy storms, plasma geysers, and the occasional reality distortion field." "Reality distortion field?" "Oh, yes. The simulation likes to mess with your perception of what's real. Very popular with the psychological warfare crowd." Riley took a step forward and immediately had to dodge as a pillar of superheated plasma erupted from the ground where her foot had been. "Okay, that's not ideal." In the observation gallery, General Vextar leaned forward with obvious anticipation. "Watch this, colleagues. This is where Captain Pancake learns that warfare isn't about breakfast foods and human bravado." 3 minutes later, Riley was sprinting across the plains like she was late for the galaxy's most important meeting, weaving between plasma jets with the kind of precision that suggested she'd done this sort of thing before. "How are you doing that?" Janet asked, sounding genuinely curious. "Doing what?" "Predicting the plasma eruptions. The pattern is supposed to be completely random." Riley leaped over a crystal formation and rolled to avoid an energy storm. It's not random. It's like making pancakes on a really temperamental griddle. You learn to read the hot spots. I'm sorry, did you just compare a lethal alien death trap to breakfast preparation? Look, when you've worked the morning shift at Mel's Diner on Kepler Station, you develop certain skills. Hot grease splatter, angry customers, equipment that's trying to kill you. It's all about pattern recognition. She cleared the first level in 8 minutes and 37 seconds. The previous record holder, a crystalline warrior named Shimmering Deathbringer, had taken 43 minutes. Well, Janet said as they materialized in what looked like a maze made of screaming metal, that was unexpected. Level 2 was the Howling Labyrinth, where the walls actively tried to crush anyone who made a wrong turn. Riley approached it the same way she approached a particularly crowded lunch rush. The key is efficiency, she explained, mapping out the maze with the kind of methodical precision that comes from having to navigate a kitchen full of hazards while carrying hot plates. You don't fight the system, you work with it. She finished Level 2 in 6 minutes flat. Level 3 was the Pit of Endless Sorrow, which was exactly as cheerful as it sounded. Participants were supposed to climb out while the pit attempted to drain their will to live. This is where most beings give up, Janet explained. The psychological pressure is designed to be overwhelming. Riley looked down into the swirling darkness below and shrugged. I've worked customer service. This is nothing. She climbed out in 4 minutes, humming what sounded like a show tune. In the observation gallery, the various alien delegates were beginning to murmur among themselves. General Vextar's confident expression had shifted to something that might have been concerned if he'd been capable of that emotion. She's treating it like a game, he muttered to his aide, a nervous-looking creature that resembled a cross between a praying mantis and a filing cabinet. Perhaps that's the point, General, the aide suggested quietly. What do you mean? Well, sir, every other species has approached the simulation as a test of warrior prowess. What if humans approach it as something else entirely? Vexter's mandibles clicked irritably. Impossible. Combat is combat. There are universal principles. On the screen, Riley had just entered Level 4 and was currently using what appeared to be interpretive dance to navigate a field of quantum mines. Universal principles, the aide repeated thoughtfully. Yes, sir, of course. Back in the simulation, Riley was having the time of her life. Jeanette, this is actually kind of fun. Why does everyone make such a big deal about it? Because most species approach it as a life-or-death struggle that will determine their worth as warriors? Huh, that does sound stressful. Riley cartwheeled over a temporal anomaly and landed in a perfect combat stance. I'm just trying to get to the end without embarrassing myself in front of the smug alien with too many arms. And that's working for you. So far so good. What's Level 5? The Caverns of Infinite Despair. Ooh, fancy. Do they have mood lighting? Jeanette's holographic form flickered in what might have been the AI equivalent of a headache. Captain, I'm beginning to think that human psychology is more complex than the simulation designers anticipated. Or, Riley said, sliding under a laser grid with the casual grace of someone who'd spent years avoiding flying breakfast pastries, maybe we're just too stubborn to know when we're supposed to quit. She cleared Level 5 in record time, leaving behind a trail of confused quantum algorithms and what the simulation could only classify as aggressive optimism. In the observation gallery, General Vextar was no longer looking quite so confident about his earlier predictions. Level 6 is where things get interesting, Janet announced as Riley materialized in what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary suburban kitchen. Welcome to the Nightmare Nexus. Riley looked around at the cheerful yellow wallpaper, the humming refrigerator, and the smell of fresh coffee. This is supposed to be nightmare fuel? The simulation adapts to your deepest psychological fears and insecurities. For most species, it manifests as combat scenarios designed to break their warrior spirit. And for humans? Well, that's what we're about to find out. The kitchen flickered, and suddenly Riley was standing in the middle of Mel's Diner during the busiest lunch rush in recorded history. Every table was full, the grill was on fire, and there was a line of increasingly angry customers stretching out the door and around the block. Oh, come on, Riley muttered. Really? The simulation had apparently decided that the most terrifying thing it could show a human was customer service during peak hours, which, Riley had to admit, was actually pretty accurate. Table 6 is still waiting for their order, a synthetic voice announced over the diner's intercom. Table 12 wants to speak to the manager about their eggs. The coffee machine is broken. You have 17 tickets backed up, and corporate is coming for an inspection in 10 minutes. Riley rolled up her sleeves. Jeanette, is this supposed to be psychological warfare? I believe so, yes. The simulation is trying to overwhelm you with impossible demands and social pressure. Okay, but here's the thing about working food service. Riley grabbed an apron from behind the counter and tied it around her waist. You learn that the secret isn't to do everything perfectly. The secret is to do everything fast enough that nobody has time to complain. She moved through the simulated diner with the kind of fluid efficiency that comes from years of practice. Order up, clean the table, take the next order, dodge the flying condiments, smile at the customer who's clearly having a breakdown over their toast being slightly too brown. "Ma'am, I ordered my eggs over easy, not scrambled," complained a customer who looked suspiciously like General Vextar but with fewer arms. "Coming right up," Riley said cheerfully, cracking 2 eggs onto the grill with one hand while she poured coffee with the other. "And I'll throw in a side of bacon for the inconvenience." The simulated Vextar looked confused. Thank you?" "No problem. First rule of customer service, kill them with kindness. Second rule, if kindness doesn't work, kill them with competence." She cleared the breakfast rush in 12 minutes, leaving behind a diner full of satisfied customers and a simulation that seemed genuinely confused about what had just happened. "Level 7, Janet announced, sounding increasingly bewildered. "The labyrinth of lost souls." This time, Riley found herself in a maze that seemed to be made of pure shadow and regret. Whispers echoed from the walls, speaking in voices that sounded like everyone she'd ever disappointed. "You're not good enough," the voices murmured. "You'll never be good enough. Why did you think you could succeed where warriors greater than you have failed?" Riley paused, listening to the voices with the kind of attention she usually reserved for customers explaining why their order was wrong. "Okay, I hear you," she said to the shadows. "And I appreciate the feedback, but here's the thing about being not good enough. Sometimes, that's exactly what you need to be." She started walking through the maze, ignoring the whispers and the phantom hands that reached out from the walls. "I mean, think about it," she continued, addressing the darkness like she was having a conversation with an old friend. "If I was good enough, I wouldn't have to try so hard. If I was good enough, I wouldn't have learned how to be stubborn. If I was good enough, I probably wouldn't be here right now, breaking some alien's precious record." The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "You're going to fail," they hissed. "You're going to embarrass yourself in front of the entire galaxy." "Probably," Riley agreed. "But you know what? I've been embarrassing myself in front of people my entire life. At least this time I'm getting paid for it." She found the exit in 8 minutes, leaving the labyrinth of lost souls to contemplate the unexpected resilience of human self-deprecation. Level 8 was the arena of infinite combat, where she had to face projections of the galaxy's greatest warriors in single combat. The twist was that each opponent was stronger, faster, and more skilled than the last. Riley faced down a holographic Zentorian champion who moved like liquid lightning, a crystalline warrior whose body was literally made of living diamond, and something that looked like a cross between a tiger and a math equation. "How are you winning these fights?" Janet asked after Riley had somehow defeated what appeared to be a sentient star. "Your combat scores are average at best." "I'm not winning," Riley panted, dodging a plasma blast from a robotic opponent that seemed to be made of pure anger. "I'm just not losing fast enough for them to stop the fight." "That's actually a valid strategy. It's called persistence. Also, spite. Mostly spite." She cleared level 8 through what could only be described as aggressive determination and a complete refusal to acknowledge that she was outmatched. Level 9 was the Chamber of Temporal Echoes, where participants had to navigate through multiple timelines simultaneously. Riley approached it like she was trying to keep track of 6 different orders during a lunch rush, maintaining awareness of multiple streams of reality with the kind of multitasking that comes from years of professional chaos management. Level 10 was the Void of Absolute Silence, designed to drive participants insane through sensory deprivation. Riley spent the entire level having a cheerful conversation with herself about the proper way to flip pancakes. By level 11, the observation gallery had gone completely silent. General Vextar's 4 arms were crossed in what was clearly the alien equivalent of sulking, and several delegates were taking notes on human psychology with the kind of intensity usually reserved for studying military secrets. "She's treating every challenge like it's a workplace problem," one of the observers muttered. "Is that bad?" asked another. "I don't know. Nobody's ever tried that approach before." Level 12 was the pit of endless bureaucracy, where participants had to navigate an infinitely complex system of forms, permits, and regulations. Riley approached it with the weary resignation of someone who'd once spent 4 hours trying to get a food service license renewed. "Jeanette, this is just Tuesday at the Department of Motor Vehicles. The simulation is supposed to drive you insane with frustration." Too late, I've already been there, multiple times. She cleared level 12 by treating it like any other encounter with institutional incompetence, with patience, persistence, and a healthy appreciation for the absurd. Level 13 was where things got really interesting. The nexus of infinite possibility presented participants with every choice they'd ever made, every path they'd never taken, every moment of doubt and regret crystallized into a single, overwhelming experience. Riley stood in the center of a swirling vortex of alternate realities, watching versions of herself succeed and fail in infinite combinations. "This is where most beings break," Janet said quietly. "The weight of infinite possibility tends to crush the psyche." Riley watched a version of herself that had become a successful chef, another that had joined the military earlier, one that had never left Earth. All the lives she might have lived, all the choices she might have made. "You know what?" she said to the swirling chaos around her. "I'm good with the choices I made, even the stupid ones. Especially the stupid ones." She walked through the vortex like she was walking through a particularly crowded restaurant, acknowledging the other versions of herself with the kind of casual nod you'd give to coworkers passing in the hallway. Level 13 cleared in 6 minutes flat. "Captain," Janet said, and for the first time the AI's voice contained something that might have been awe. "I think you might actually have a chance at this." Riley grinned. "Jeanette, I haven't even started trying yet." In the observation gallery, General Vextar was no longer sulking. He was staring at the displays with the kind of expression that suggested his entire worldview was being systematically dismantled. "Level 17, Janet announced, her voice carrying a note of reverence that hadn't been there before. "This is where Crixval set his record. No one has ever gone beyond this point." Riley found herself standing in what appeared to be an exact replica of the Galactic Defense Council chamber, but wrong in ways that made her skin crawl. The walls breathed, the floor pulsed like a heartbeat, and the assembled delegates were all staring at her with expressions of absolute judgment. "Welcome to the Tribunal of Ultimate Failure," Janet explained. "This is where the simulation breaks down your sense of self-worth by forcing you to confront the disappointment of everyone who ever believed in you." The holographic version of Commander Brooks stood up from his seat, his face a mask of profound disappointment. "Riley, I trusted you. I believed in you, and you've failed us all." "That's not actually Commander Brooks," Riley said, but even as she spoke she could feel the weight of the accusation settling on her shoulders. "Does it matter?" asked the projection of her old drill instructor. "You've always been mediocre, Martinez. We all knew it. We just hoped you'd figure it out before you embarrassed yourself like this." More figures materialized around her. Her parents, her ex-boyfriend from flight school, every teacher who'd ever given her a disappointed look. They formed a circle around her, their voices joining in a chorus of everything she'd ever feared hearing. "You're not special. You're not brave. You're just a girl who makes breakfast foods and thinks she's a warrior." Riley stood in the center of the circle, feeling the familiar weight of every insecurity she'd ever carried. This was different from the earlier challenges. This one knew exactly where to hit. "Jeanette," she said quietly, "is this how Crixval broke?" According to the records, he lasted 47 minutes before the simulation declared him psychologically unfit to continue. The projections convinced him that he had dishonored his entire bloodline. And everyone else? Similar outcomes. The simulation finds each species' cultural pressure points and exploits them mercilessly. The projections were getting louder, more insistent. Riley could feel her confidence wavering for the first time since entering the simulation. Suppressed a short chuckle in response. "You're going to fail," they chanted in unison. "You're going to prove that humans don't belong here. You're going to let everyone down." Riley closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, she was smiling. "You know what?" she said to the circle of judgmental faces. "You're absolutely right." The projections faltered, clearly not expecting agreement. "I am going to let people down," Riley continued, her voice growing stronger. "I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to fail at things that matter." She started walking toward the exit, pushing past the confused projections. "But here's the thing about humans that you perfect alien warriors don't understand. We fail all the time. We're experts at it. We've turned failure into an art form." The projections tried to regroup, but Riley was already moving past them. "We fail at relationships. We fail at jobs. We fail at parallel parking. We fail so often that we've learned how to fail better than anyone else in the galaxy." She reached the exit and turned back to face the tribunal. "And sometimes, if we fail enough times, we accidentally succeed, usually when nobody's expecting it." Level 17 cleared in 18 minutes. Level 18, Janet announced, and now her voice contained something that might have been excitement. The Fortress of Infinite Regression. This time, Riley found herself facing an endless series of herself, each one slightly more successful than the last. The first Riley was a better pilot. The second was a better leader. The third had never made the mistakes that had haunted her career. Choose, commanded a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Choose which version of yourself you want to be. Riley looked at the endless line of improved versions of herself. Better, stronger, more competent. Everything she'd ever wanted to be. None of them, she said. Choose, the voice repeated, more insistently. I said none of them. I choose to be the version of myself that's standing here right now, the one who's imperfect and stubborn and makes pancakes and refuses to quit even when she probably should. The fortress began to collapse around her, reality fracturing as the simulation struggled to process her response. But they're better than you, the voice protested. Yeah, probably. But they're not me, and me is who I want to be. Level 18 cleared in 4 minutes. Level 19 was the maze of infinite complexity, where every decision led to 17 more decisions, each more complicated than the last. Riley approached it like she was trying to decide what to have for breakfast, quickly, decisively, and with the understanding that most choices weren't as important as people made them out to be. Level 20 was the arena of perfect opponents, where she faced enemies that were specifically designed to counter every move she made. Riley beat them by doing things that made no tactical sense whatsoever, confusing their adaptive algorithms with the kind of chaotic unpredictability that comes from years of improvisation. Level 21 was the Chamber of Absolute Truth, where participants were forced to confront every lie they'd ever told themselves. Riley spent the entire level having a brutally honest conversation with herself about her flaws, her fears, and her completely unreasonable determination to succeed out of spite. You know you're not actually qualified for this, right? She said to herself. Completely unqualified, she agreed. And you're probably going to fail spectacularly. Almost certainly. So why are you still here? Because that smug four-armed jerk made fun of my call sign, and I have a pathological need to prove people wrong. Level 21 cleared in 12 minutes. Level 22 presented her with the void of infinite loneliness, designed to break down social beings by isolating them completely. Riley spent the entire level humming show tunes and having imaginary conversations with Janet about the proper seasoning for scrambled eggs. Level 23 was the gauntlet of physical impossibility, where the laws of physics became increasingly optional. Riley navigated it by applying the same logic she used for broken kitchen equipment. If it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, find a way to make it work anyway. Level 24 was the nexus of cosmic insignificance, where participants were shown their place in the vast, uncaring universe. Riley looked at the infinite expanse of stars and galaxies and shrugged. Yeah, I'm insignificant, she said. So what? I'm still here. And then, after what felt like an eternity of chaos and impossibility, she found herself standing in front of a simple door marked, Level 25, the final challenge. Captain, Janet said, and her voice was barely above a whisper. You've broken the record. Crixval never made it past level 17. You've gone further than anyone in galactic history. Cool, Riley said, reaching for the door handle. What's behind door number 25? I don't know. The records don't say. No one has ever made it this far. Riley paused, her hand on the handle. In the observation gallery she could see the entire Galactic Defense Council on their feet, staring at the displays in stunned silence. General Vextar looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Well, she said, only one way to find out. She opened the door and stepped into the final challenge, ready to face whatever impossible scenario the simulation had saved for last. What she found was a perfectly ordinary kitchen, and standing at the stove, flipping pancakes with casual expertise, was another version of herself. Hey there, the other Riley said without turning around. I was wondering when you'd show up. Riley stared at her doppelganger, who was humming the same tune she'd been humming in the void of infinite loneliness. So, the other Riley continued, ready to face the ultimate challenge? Which is? The other Riley turned around, and Riley saw that she was smiling with the kind of peaceful confidence that comes from being completely comfortable with who you are. Learning to be proud of yourself, she said. Even when you're not perfect, even when you make mistakes, even when alien generals make fun of your call sign. Riley looked at the pancakes, golden brown and perfect, and realized that this was the real test. Not combat, not psychological warfare, not impossible physical challenges. Just accepting that she was exactly who she was supposed to be. She walked over to the stove and took the spatula from her other self. "You know what?" she said, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. "I think I can handle that." Level 25 cleared in 30 seconds. In the observation gallery, the silence was deafening. General Vexstar was staring at the displays like they'd personally insulted his mother. Commander Brooks was grinning so hard his face looked like it might split in half. And somewhere in the depths of the simulation, ancient alien algorithms were trying to process what had just happened and coming up empty. Riley Martinez, callsign Pancake, had just accomplished the impossible. And she'd made it look easy. The simulation chamber's door hissed open, and Riley stepped out into what could only be described as the most awkward silence in galactic history. The observation gallery was packed with delegates from 17 different species, all of whom were staring at her like she'd just turned water into wine while juggling flaming torches. "So," Riley said, stretching casually, "that was fun. Anyone got a towel?" The silence stretched on for another 10 seconds before Commander Brooks started laughing. It wasn't polite laughter or nervous laughter. It was the kind of deep, belly-shaking laughter that comes from watching someone you believed in exceed every possible expectation. 25 levels, he managed between gasps. "You cleared all 25 levels." "Was that good?" Riley asked innocently. "Good." Janet's voice echoed from the chamber's speakers. "Captain, you just accomplished something that the greatest warriors in galactic history have been attempting for 2 decades. You didn't just break the record, you obliterated it." General Vexstar stood up slowly, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. He looked like someone had just explained quantum physics to him, using interpretive dance. "This is impossible," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The simulation was designed to be unbeatable. The psychological parameters alone should have—" "Should have what?" Riley asked, genuinely curious. "Should have broken you," Vexstar finished weakly. "The tribunal of ultimate failure has never been defeated. The nexus of cosmic insignificance has driven entire species to madness. The final challenge has never even been attempted." Riley shrugged. "Yeah, well, I guess humans are just built different." A delegate from the crystalline collective, whose body resembled a living chandelier, chimed in with a sound like breaking glass. "Captain Martinez, your approach to the simulation was unconventional. You treated each challenge as if it were a workplace problem, rather than a test of warrior prowess." "That's because they were workplace problems," Riley said. "I mean customer service, multitasking, dealing with bureaucracy, handling criticism from people who think they're better than you. It's all just different versions of the same thing." "Which is?" asked another delegate, this one from the Ethereal Consciousness Collective. "Showing up and doing your job, even when everything's going wrong and everyone's telling you that you can't do it." General Vexstar's mandibles clicked in what Riley was beginning to recognize as the alien equivalent of a nervous breakdown. "But you're just... you're just a human. Your species has barely achieved interstellar travel, your technology is primitive, your military doctrine is chaotic at best." "Alt true," Riley agreed cheerfully. "Then how?" Vexstar's voice cracked slightly. "How did you succeed where warriors with centuries of training and genetic optimization failed?" Riley considered the question seriously. "Well, I think it's because you all approached it like it was supposed to be hard." "It was supposed to be hard," Vexstar protested. "It was designed to be the ultimate test of warrior capability." "Right, but see, that's your problem. You went in thinking it was a test you had to pass. I went in thinking it was a job I had to do." "What's the difference?" asked the crystalline delegate. "Tests have right answers. Jobs just have to get done." The observation gallery erupted in confused chatter as various species tried to process this revelation. Riley waited patiently for the noise to die down, then continued. "Plus, I had a secret weapon that none of your fancy warriors had." "Which was?" Vexstar asked, leaning forward despite himself. Riley grinned. "I was really annoyed that you made fun of my call sign." That's not a tactical advantage," Vexstar sputtered. "Isn't it? I mean, spite is a pretty powerful motivator. You tell someone they can't do something, especially if you're smug about it, and humans will move mountains just to prove you wrong." Commander Brooks was still grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Riley, do you understand what you've just done? You've not only secured humanity's position in the Defense Coalition, you've probably earned us a promotion to senior partner status." "Cool. Does that come with a raise? Probably several raises. Even cooler. Think they'll let me redesign the mess hall menu? Before Brooks could answer, General Vextar cleared his throat. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of formal military protocol. Captain Martinez, he said, his forearms moving in what was clearly a formal salute. I owe you an apology. I underestimated your capabilities and the capabilities of your species. Your achievement today will be remembered in military academies throughout the galaxy. Thanks, Riley said. That's nice of you to say. I have one question, though, Vextar continued, his voice carefully neutral. Your call sign, Pancake. I understand now that I was wrong to dismiss it, but I confess I still don't understand the significance. Riley's grin widened. You want to know the real story behind my call sign? If you're willing to share. Well, it started during my first combat mission. I was flying escort for a supply convoy when we got jumped by pirates, 3 ships against my 1, and I was flying a training fighter that was held together with duct tape and optimism. She paused, enjoying the rapt attention of the entire gallery. So there I was, outgunned and outmaneuvered, when I remembered something my grandmother used to say about making pancakes. She said the secret to good pancakes is knowing when to flip them. Too early and they fall apart. Too late and they burn. And, prompted Vextar. So I waited. Let the pirates think they had me cornered. Let them get cocky. Let them move in for the kill. And then, at exactly the right moment, I flipped. Inverted my fighter, cut the engines, and used their own momentum against them. They flew right into each other trying to follow me. All 3 ships, gone in about 10 seconds. The gallery was silent again, but this time it was the kind of silence that comes from professional respect. When I got back to base, my flight instructor asked me how I'd managed to take out 3 pirates with a training fighter. I told him it was all about timing, just like making pancakes. He started calling me Pancake as a joke. And it stuck, Commander Brooks said, pride evident in his voice. It stuck, and every time someone hears it, they think about breakfast food instead of what it really means. Which is? Asked the crystalline delegate. Riley's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. That I know exactly when to flip the script and turn a losing situation into a winning one. General Vextar's expression had shifted from confusion to something that might have been admiration. Captain Pancake, he said formally, it would be an honor to serve alongside you. The honor's mine, General. Just don't expect me to be all serious about it. I mean, we're flying around in space shooting at each other. If you can't find the humor in that, you're probably in the wrong line of work. Jeanette's voice echoed through the chamber one last time. Captain, before you go, I have to ask, what are you going to do now that you've broken the most legendary record in galactic military history? Riley stretched again and headed toward the exit. Well, Janet, I haven't had breakfast yet, and all that talk about pancakes has made me hungry. Think the commissary can handle a special order? I'll see what I can do, Brooks said, falling into step beside her. Great, and maybe after that we can discuss upgrading the coffee in the mess hall, because if I'm going to be humanity's new poster child for impossible achievements, I'm going to need better caffeine. As they walked out of the chamber, Riley could hear the buzz of excited conversation behind them. Delegates were already pulling out communication devices, probably calling their superiors to report that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. Riley, Brooks said quietly, you do realize that what you did today is going to change everything, right? The balance of power in the galaxy, humanity's status among the allied species, the entire approach to military simulation design. Yeah, I figured. But you know what the really important thing is? Riley's grin was pure satisfaction. That smug forearm jerk will never make fun of anyone's call sign again. And with that, Captain Riley Pancake Martinez walked off into galactic legend, already planning her breakfast order, and wondering if the commissary had any decent maple syrup. Behind them, the gauntlet of G. Gexmore sat silent and defeated, its ancient algorithms still trying to process what had just happened, and coming up with only one conclusion. Humans were far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. Not because they were stronger or faster or more technologically advanced, but because they were too stubborn to know when they were supposed to quit. And sometimes, in a galaxy full of logical, predictable warrior races, that was exactly what you needed to change everything.